It's starting right now, I think.
I think this is
live
the
now.
real deal.
It happens live. Rip the Band-Aid off. Hey guys, thanks for joining us here. I've got my good friends Ralph and Mark joining us. If you haven't heard, we're sitting down today. We're calling it a fireside chat, okay? Because the big news today is that Funko bought our good friends Mondo. And there's a variety of reactions and feelings that I saw expressed throughout the day. I have some. Everybody here, I'm sure, has a few things. Anyone who joins us, pop some stuff in the chat. Let us know. We'll definitely be taking questions. But yes, it was announced that Mondo will have a new parent company. They're moving away from Alamo Draft House, and they've got a new mommy and daddy. It's going to be Funko. Funko makes those little tiny, beyond just this, they make those little tiny figurines. Maybe action figures, I'm not quite the right word. There's one. They tend to be very cute. Look at how cute that is. What's that from, Ralph?
It's an Otter Pop.
It's an Otter Pop. Okay.
Isaac Long.
Okay. They remind me of Beanie Babies sometimes in some way.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that vibe. That I'm not judging that. I'm just releasing that opinion to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the main message that I heard from Mondo was we are the same team. We have the same goals. We've got more friends here to help us do the things that we want to do. My first thought around that is that I thought that was great. I wish Mo and Spencer had said it, maybe. That was my first thought. It would have been great just to have them say it. And that's a minor quibble, perhaps. I think before I get into some of the pros cons that I saw out there, because I've done some collecting throughout the day, I would say, Ralph, what were your initial thoughts about this news?
Gut reaction was anger. Another, sort of, and it was mostly just because it's like, oh, it's a corporate thing. I have, and I mentioned to you this before we went on, I have a minor quibble with Funko, but it has more to do with me personally. A little bit of that's a whole different thing I'll get into. But for the most part, I was just like, it sucks because I like Mondo. Mostly the Deathwall side of things, obviously, collecting vinyl has been like come into my life the last couple of years, and Death Waltz has been like one of the top tier places to get vinyl. Not so much on the poster side or the vinyl collectible side.
Yeah, same.
I really don't do that much stuff. So I was kind of more just kind of angry because we've seen, when someone takes over, when a corporate entity takes over a smaller company, changes start to be made. And just knowing like Funko, I don't know if it's going to be that crazy of a change. As the day progressed and I was reading all of the articles and Mondo's announcement, I feel like I'm hoping this is the case, that everybody who's on the Mondo team stays on the Mondo team and things go according to plan. But with Funko being the sort of owner now, that they'll have more license to do bigger things, better things, different things, as opposed to like devolving. I don't see why Funko would want Mondo unless they wanted to make it better. But that's to say, what's their idea of better than mine? So, I'm hoping that this just allows Mondo to print more posters for those poster fans, because I know that's an issue. And I want to say that there's another issue with bots buying up product from Mondo and, tripling the prices on the secondary market. So I'm hoping that Funko has something in place with the way they do things that can sort of fix that.
It'll be interesting to see if they do. Mark, what was your reaction to this?
Well, at first I was just really surprised because they have this kind of niche, niche not underdog, but kind of underdog kind of vibe as like a small company that does like cool creative things. And then Funko is this much larger organization that is present in like every aspect of like pop culture nerdum, at the Comic Cons and shows and all that. Like you see it everywhere. They're retailers. They're very much a mainstream kind of product. So I just found that surprising. And then, because at first I saw the news and I'm like, I gotta talk. Like, I want to tell my wife about this, but she doesn't care at all. So I had to go to the internet to find people. And then in the Facebook group for vinyl soundtracks, people were commenting on it as well, and Spencer was answering questions, and I'm just like, hey, are you guys gonna operate in the same capacity like you and Mo? And he basically responded, more capacity, like they're gonna have more resources to be able to do all the cool stuff that we've been asking about. And that's really my only thing. If they can do that, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Similar to Ralph, what you were saying, ideally they have more of those resources, more of those ins. Funko deals with a lot of intellectual property. They have relationships with a lot of huge companies. Right. And if that can translate into getting, any kind of IP on the vinyl side, all the better. And because I'm sure a lot of that is just having the right contacts and relationships. So if that can better what we have access to, then kind of I'm all for it.
One of the things I think as well is that Funko kind of started from a similar place as Mondo.
Yeah,
they were a small business. They got the rights to, like, was it Bob's Big Boy, and just sold bobbleheads.
Yeah.
And they kind of just grew from there. So, hopefully it does allow for growth, but I don't see them coming in and just like destroying the place. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think it's pretty natural when Mark, something you said struck a chord with me, is that I think that they have an independent vibe. I think they really feel like they're their own group doing exactly what they want, and that's attractive to me. And I think anytime you see a group that is doing exactly what they want, and then it feels like, oh, now there might be some new folks that are there to help them, maybe in quotes, but also they're beholden to other things, right? So they're at risk of that independence a little bit. I think that's what makes some people the most nervous, and for me to a certain degree too, because I'm kind of split too. I'm not a poster guy, and I really hope some poster folks watch this, give us some comments, and give me more of an idea about how they feel from there, because I'm strictly vinyl, and I buy a lot from the Deathwall side. I buy maybe about half as much from the Mondo side in comparison, and that's mostly due to taste. That's nothing particular about the two sides, but I think that's part of my concern. My biggest wish always for them is that the quality of the audio on the vinyl would tick up like a hair. And when I heard this, I thought, I wonder what this will give. If they have limitations based on what way the world currently works for them, will that allow them to be able to lean into that? And their customer service, I also think, is like through the roof good. Like I felt honored and respect. Like every time I'm like, I've got an issue, they're just like bend over backwards, and I never have heard anybody have a different experience. I'm sure somebody will drum one up, but I really feel like they have a really good track record for that kind of stuff. So those are the kinds of things that make me feel like, through this transition, because part of it's just fear of change too. It's like, oh, will we lose some of these things, like Spencer reaching out and commenting on stuff? Right. I think that's a big part of their appeal. I like that they comment on stuff. I like how personal they're very open. Mo talking about the things he loves unabashedly and unapologetically. Those are the things that I really like about them, and I would hate to feel insulated away from them because of a change like that. And I agree, it doesn't sound like that's the plan, but I think there's worries that, well, what about 8 months from now or something,
Right.
They're a publicly traded company, right? So they are beholden to shareholders. And when there's a big organization, there is somebody kind of standing over you and that there could be ramifications because of that. Hopefully not, but and you talked about the quality of the vinyl. I think it's very unlikely that it'll go down. I read some comments saying like, oh, it'll probably go down, just like I think they're alluding that the Funko Pops have gone down in quality at some point. I'm not sure. Again, I don't follow the Beanie Babies.
I wouldn't be able to measure that. No. Yeah, right. I would be like, well, they used to be painted very. And I'm sure there are guys.
Yeah,
and I respect people who are committed like that. I can get on board like that, but yeah, it's just never been my thing.
But on the vinyl side, there's only so many pressing plants. Yes, there's been quality control issues over the years, but that's kind of not specific to them. That's every label that I've experienced. So I don't think there should be the concern there for a decrease in quality. On the artist side, I'm sure they'll work with the same stable, if not more, artists. The quality of the packaging and all that stuff, like that's not going to go down. It's cardboard and foil and all that stuff. So I don't think there should be a concern there for drop in quality.
Here's a comment I saw a lot, and we mentioned it a little bit a few minutes ago, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion. Maybe you saw something in the Facebook group too. Is that it's like, well, maybe now they can make more when they press things. And I heard that and I thought back and I thought, I don't know that they're always like restrained from pressing more than they want. I'm sure there are some contracts that are like, no, we want to keep it limited. We want to do this, that, or the other. But there's lots of times where I think the plan is to do 5,000 of these or 500, and that's what they're asking for. And I don't know that the desire is to, remove that sense of it. I think maybe it'll be easier to do repressings, like, or new colors. Like but I don't know that the plan is to get rid of that part of their model, I guess.
So that is probably my biggest point of discussion in this whole situation. So the idea of exclusivity and the desire to keep that. So similar to what you said, they probably very likely are keeping numbers low for certain pressings. I'm sure like they've done forecasting. They've seen what sells and what doesn't and what hangs out for 3 years in their shop and they're trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
So they have some numbers to back up what will sell. Now this would probably help with distribution. So okay, I'm gonna go into two tangents here. So distribution and exclusivity. I'm gonna start with the exclusivity. So and this came up on the poster side too, because there is a group called Mondo Trader that's devoted to the posters, and people were very concerned about them doing sort of I don't know what you call a repress of a poster, a new run.
Yeah, reprint.
Reprint. Thank you. So
poster friends, correct us in the comments. Feel free.
Sorry guys. But doing the reprints and them losing value in their current posters. So somebody was arguing that they're fine art prints. So
I have
I
have so little concern with undercutting value. Like
and that's
keep
like
going.
That's the side that like I see that argument that doesn't jive with my kind of collecting. For me, I'm on the side of make things as mass market as will sell. I would much rather have the chance to own something and my friends to be able to own something rather than having to fight, insane prices on the resale market or scalpers and whatnot. Like you will eliminate that issue if you do have that as a mass market product. On this, on the other token, though, that will upset people who view this as a fine art limited piece. But even on the vinyl side, like I don't care about limited. If it's a cool record, I want it. I don't care about the number. I don't care about the value. Like, sure, it's nice to check Discogs and see like, wow, this is worth $200.
Right. But it's a nice dopamine hit. Be like,
it is, but I'm not going
to
sell it, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
So I'm just keeping it to listen to. So that exclusivity, I would much rather have that mass market product. So that'll jump into my side of distribution. Myself, you guys aren't affected by this as much, but myself and people in the international market, shipping and distribution is an issue. There's a lot of costs and tariffs that go along with it. With these guys, I'm sure they have a bigger distribution network. If they can get that in international markets for a more reasonable cost, that's all the better to us as consumers. So that to me, that's good news.
My buddy at Vinyl Processing on Instagram, if you guys follow him, first of all, he takes gorgeous photos of his records, but he posted something on his story today that was like, and I believe he's in the UK. He's asleep right now. He says this will be 3 a.m., so he's not coming. But he posted something that like shipping was like one of the biggest things he was excited for, is that this might make it easier to get things on that side.
You see that every single time. Every single time Mondo posts anything, are you going to ship outside the United States? It's always, the comments are always there. Every single time.
And maybe that solves, because like I know, and I'm gonna bring too many other labels into this either, but like I remember there was a couple Waxworks releases of Carpenter titles that were not going to be allowed to be shipped to the UK at all, and that was due to licensing deals that other people had in those territories. So it wasn't even a cost issue; it was a territory license agreement that they could not breach, and so that made it difficult for some fans who really even just wanted them and would pay anything. For instance, they couldn't access those titles. So maybe that's another layer to that for us, folks, even just in America and beyond, is like there's other barriers out there potentially that this could help alleviate. I would say the slippery slope of distribution that I saw some people sliding very easily down, I'll say cascading down, is that, does that mean that there's going to be like some of these partnerships you see with other labels? Like, is there going to be a Target exclusive color of a Jurassic Park release now in the future? And the good, bad of that, right? Like,
I think almost certainly that will happen.
I mean, I am fortunate enough to live in an area where there's several record shops, and so I can pretty much find Mondo on the shelf if I need it. But I mean, I'm not going to go to if they do it at Target, I would go get it. Like if they had it at Target and I was at Target and I see a Mondo record on the shelf, I would get it. It wouldn't necessarily be because of the Target colorway or whatever, but it would just be because it's an impulse buy.
But there are the collectors out there who will want every variant, and then you introduce, like Lakeshore with Stranger Things pressings. There has to be 20 of those, and there's the collectors that have to have every single kind. I mean,
I'm glad I'm not one of those.
If you analyze that from Lakeshore's perspective too, what a boon that is for them, right? Like what a gift of awareness. Like that raises their awareness so much. And so it's like, I wrote in my notes, I'm going to go back to my note, and I was like, is it snooty not to like this? like there is an inherent like vinyl, snootiness thing to be I don't think so. No. And I want to let go of those kinds of tendencies because I have them. They're ingrained in me in parts of me. And, as you try and age and be, mature or whatever it is, I just don't want to, if this means that some kid who's never heard Jurassic, I'm going to use Jurassic Park again, like it got repressed and it's on a Target limited thing, walks into Target one day, picks it up and goes, what the heck is this? They make, and like their brain is turned on by the idea of this soundtrack that they couldn't find because they live in wherever they are in the world that doesn't have access, then that's cool. Right. I don't know.
Yeah. The thing for me, I'm fortunate enough to not be precious about collecting. I got Fight Club. I unboxed it today. I did not pull the sacrifice tab. I'm like, I'm not going to do it how they want to do it, but I still cut it open with an X-Acto knife. So I'm not precious about it.
Destroyed it a little. I think that's good.
I definitely destroyed it. And in hindsight, it would have probably been easier to access my records by doing it the way they suggested, because the Obi strips fits right over that thing. I didn't think it out. But my actual my sacrifice thing did not pull the inner wire, so it's a whole thing. You can watch that.
Yeah,
but the thing
good
is,
plug right now for that video.
But like I don't care about like variants or exclusives or any of that stuff. I get these records for the music. I got one of my favorites is from At the Movies, did a Jupiter Ascending, and I like color vinyl because I like taking pictures of color vinyl on my bright green turntable and posting those to Instagram. But I wanted Jupiter Ascending, and they had black vinyl, and I'm like, I don't care, because for me the music comes first, it makes me happy. I think what you could do if you really wanted to sell Target exclusives and not step on the toes of the current fans who like the exclusive stuff, make your Target exclusives picture vinyls, make them picture discs.
Sure.
Because the fans, these diehard fans aren't going to go picking up picture discs at Target for it. I don't see it happening. But that kid who is just getting into vinyl sees, whatever.
But you also want to introduce them to a good quality product.
So I know that's true too.
And I remember the local stores here, when they usually get a distro version of a Mondo release, it's almost always the black vinyl. And maybe I know that they've been promoting that eco vinyl, so with that kind of recycled vinyl that is kind of a multitude of colors. Maybe that's the option, something like that. David's Horror left a comment, I think it's a good jumping off point for the possibility of the future. And he is asking if we have to buy a vinyl that's only limited to a bundle, and you you have to buy it with a special edition Funko Pop, because this popped in my head thinking about Dune Part 2, and I was like, well, maybe Mondo will release that one day, and I was like, am I gonna have to buy a little Timmy Chalamet to go with it to get a certain version or something? What do you guys think about that possibility?
I think they're $10, so whatever. If it comes with it, I'll give it to my kid or my dog.
That's not an issue. So this is what I'm going to get into. I have a modest collection of Funko Pops, and that's because I'm a big Green Lantern fan. I got the dude back here, and I'm facing a bunch of Green Lantern books and my collection of Green Lantern Pops, which there aren't a lot of, because you don't really see a lot of Green Lantern merch out there. No. So when Pops releases a Green Lantern, that perfect. I'll grab one. So just because there's not a lot of Green Lantern stuff out there. Now, in the last couple years, they've kind of stopped making these Green Lantern Pops. And there's a character that's been around since the 90s, and they finally made a pop of this character. His name's Kyle Rayner. Doesn't matter to anybody except me. But anyway.
Carl Reiner? It's the director?
Kyle, yeah. Summer school director.
Yeah.
So it's great. Great news. We have this new Funko Pop of a Green Lantern character. It's been a couple years, and it's a character that everybody's wanted. But in order to get it, you had to download an app in which you can buy for $10 a pack of NFTs. And they're essentially cards. So it's a blind bag card, digital. You open it up, and if you're lucky, you'll get the Green Lantern card, which the percentage of finding a Green Lantern card is 2%. Now, once you get that card on September 20th of this year, if you have that in your app, you can go on at whatever time it starts and purchase that Green Lantern physical pop. Okay, so this is $10.
This is harder than Willy Wonka.
It's $10 for a digital pack of cards. You don't get anything for your $10, and you're just hoping to get that one you want. People are selling. People have found the Green Lantern digital card and are willing to sell their login information on eBay, so that on September 20th or whatever it is, you have a chance to go on and get the physical version. And they're selling that fake digital chance for that one Green Lantern pop, $300. So my thing is this. I don't need to do all this to get a record. I really, really don't want this to get a record that I really want. And it's that's the kind of hoops that is going to drive me nuts. Like, I'm all for Target exclusives. I'm all for repressings. Waxworks does it all the time. And it's great because, like, I have Bride of Frankenstein, the first pressing, and I got to be honest, that vinyl color, the marble vinyl, looks a lot better than the repress, like, blue one. But That's what I get. That's my reward for getting the first pressing. So if you want to do repressings, just make them less cool than the first one, and we're good. But I don't want this kind of BS hoop jumping to get a vinyl I want. And
yeah, that's a lot of work. That sounds like a lot of work.
It's bad enough jumping on at, 10 Central Time or whatever it is on Wednesdays. It's nerve-wracking enough to do that, but then to like drop $10 at a time to get these blind packs virtually and then have to wait till September to see if you can get the thing you want. Like I'm good with the once a week 10 a.m. to 10:05 purchasing a vinyl. So that's my main concern, is kind of this sort of like new age BS.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the creativity that went into that kind of sort of campaign and marketing. But kind of going back to my earlier point is like, I just want to buy a record. I don't care about exclusivity or all this other nonsense. Like just give me the record. I'll pay you what it's worth.
Sure.
That's the thing. So this Green Lantern they're limiting it to, I think, like 2,500 of these specific Carl Reiner Funko Pops. There's 2,500 of them. Listen, just open it up to the fans to purchase them. I am a huge Godzilla fan, and Mondo's been doing these 2,000 limited run of the Toho Monster vinyl. And I have like at least a week or two to get my hands on it. And it's limited to 2,000. Just sell this stuff to the diehard fans that want it, and make it enough. Like you said, use the sort of analytics to see what the demand is ahead of time.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's calculations that go on to say, because I mean, it costs a lot of money to make this stuff, and they don't want to be in a position where they have 500, 1,000. Whatever that capital cost tied up in that, waiting for those to sell or not, right? So they're trying to kind of calculate what's enough, because I'm sure, I don't think anyone can deny that having just enough and maybe a few people miss out drives a lot of chatter, right? And then you drop a repress and you say, hey, don't worry, here's another round, and like the satisfaction machine kind of, everybody gets their nostalgia dopamine hit, and we could all kind of, float along okay. But I get that there's probably a business calculation that has to be made, because that, they don't want to say, we think this will sell 20,000 and it only sells 4, because that I'm sure is a significant financial impact, especially if your bottom line is really tight. And I cannot imagine all the moving targets of costs and budgets that you have to watch while you're also dealing with delays in production, and like trying to keep all these little plates in the air to have all, your monetary intervals work in a way that actually makes business sense while you have all these delays. I just, what a headache. It must be like that Charlie Always Sunny meme, right, with the strings, and be like, and then the vinyl's gonna come in and we're gonna, it's just gotta be
that's where this should help, is
right.
They have that greater resources, that capital, where they could take risks. They could get a greater amount of inventory. Maybe they don't have to do all these pre-orders, because even for them to order that, that's a significant upfront cost. Whereas if they get pre-orders, they're able to take care of that.
It's okay to have it in stock for 2 years, right? And think of a title that maybe has more perennial, like Home Alone or something. It's like, well, we know Home Alone maybe every Christmas will go up and we'll sell some more, and then it sits there for 8 months or whatever. It'll be interesting to see how things change or don't, and I'm sure some people have a little magnifying glass out and watching closely, but I don't know. I saw well-wishing happening online, which I thought was good. I saw
mostly cordial.
Yeah, mostly cordial. I think there was some like resigned disappointment. Most of it I thought was just shock of change, like reactions. People are like, oh, wait, what? Well, what's happening? And what does it mean?
My initial reaction was very much different, than a half hour later. My initial reaction was table flipping. And then I was like, well, why? It's fine.
That's why I can't do unboxings.
to quell that initial reaction.
Yeah, half an hour later, I have a completely different opinion, so I can't do it anymore.
Holy cow. I did that Fight Club one today, and I was sweating like mad. I was like, I only have one shot to open this thing, and I don't want to mess it up, but I don't want to do it the way they told me. And I was just like, beads of sweat. There's one point where I like grabbed the record and held it up here for a while I like wiped down sweat behind. Just because I don't really have that collector mentality, but also I don't want my stuff to be messed up. So
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to. Is don't mess up my stuff.
I think all of the three of us are kind of in the same boat in terms of our relationship to records, in terms of we just want the music, but it's important to acknowledge that collector side, and that's a big part of Mondo's business, and trying to appreciate where they're coming from and how that will sort of impact their interaction with that company. I get it. I don't agree, but I kind of get the concerns. The biggest one that I don't agree with is that whole concern about valuation of their sort of collection, and that's just because I'm not in that kind of collector mentality.
Yeah,
you think they'll do con exclusives? Funko's
into con exclusive. I think so.
I could see them doing that for the posters. I'm interested to see what they do for.
They've done a few. They've done a few con exclusives. I know there's one for. I don't think there's a ton, but I know there's one for Blade Runner 2049. It's always in my want list on Discogs or whatever. So I always see that one there. But I also haven't had cons for a couple years, so in the same way. So I don't, kind of broken the cycle.
But they were asked about cons, and they said they're going to continue to do them. So I would.
I got a Mondo exclusive. It was the Godzilla versus Destroya. That they had at Decon Designer Con, and that I got like number 2 or something out of 100, and I was so excited. But I really hate the secondary market. I am much happier with just getting a repress than the secondary market thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if they do con exclusives, it's not going to be too tough to get.
Maybe it's worth spending just a few minutes going back to one of the things I thought I saw hopeful comments that somehow this would mean that it would deter bots and scalpers. And I got to say that my first reaction to that desire or thinking that this merger would have an immediate impact on that, not merger, but that this change would have an impact on that is that it will not. No. I think that the bot scalping people who are into that, they're hunting and buying, and that there will not be a lot of great new mechanisms to prevent that. I think I see it at every venue where you can buy things. It happens. So I think people are like, oh, this is something going to like help that. If you really want this stuff, when you're interested, you just got to be ready. And I know we all have jobs that work at different intervals or whatever, but I don't know that this is going to be the golden ticket out of that. I guess is my.
Do you think, I haven't seen this come up, do you think we'll now see albums that go beyond soundtracks and film scores?
I hope not.
I mean,
maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, they. I love that if you guys aren't hooked on their email newsletters, that they send out. At the bottom, there's always picks from Mo and Spencer of things that are not typically not soundtracks. Sometimes they are, but like just regular things that they listen to. I mean, I know just following Mo enough and following Spencer enough, I kind of know their tastes a little bit outside of the soundtracks and the things that they love. I don't know if they'll head that way or not. That'll be interesting to see.
Right.
Looking at one of David's horror comments, so he talked about starting to see titles that haven't been able to be released yet on vinyl. So I think this is a big one when it comes to capacity and resources. So I'm sure they are stretched with certain people working on certain projects. If they have more people, more money, ideally they can crank out more. that could be a problem with just the amount that we are willing to buy at a, we all complain about those, those rushes where, 3 records drop in a couple of weeks and it just really drains the old bank account. But it's totally possible that they could just be cranking out more volume based on this.
Well, and the unique style of their projects, right, is that they probably, you're absolutely right. There's only so many of these they can work on at one time, work on the legal side, work on the art approval side, all those moving pieces. And if they have the ability to have more people operating, and they can stay committed to their goals, that maybe you see a few more of these come out a year, that then at a higher rate or cadence than they do now. Because then you might see, because you wonder, I know in a couple live streams that Mondo has done, their happy hours, they kind of talked about this whiteboard that they have. Right. It's like all of the projects they want or trying or whatever. And Mo, Spencer, if you guys want to post that sometime, then you can block out a few things if you need to for legal reasons. I'd love to see that. But maybe they can tackle 2 more projects per quarter than they could before. And then we might see a few more things, because I'm sure it takes a lot to run all those to all the way to the sale point.
Agreed. That's where I landed today, is just hopeful that Mondo has access to Funko's resources and and could build the company as opposed to like tearing it down.
A fun fact about Funko, because I was just kind of looking them up today after I saw it. When they listed on the NASDAQ stock exchange, they suffered the worst initial public offering of the 21st century.
Oh, wow.
With shares falling by 40% and only raising $125 million. Just a fun fact. Funko fun fact.
So here's one more Funko fact I'll share too, is that there was another company that they had that they bought this year, just like 3 years ago, and I saw some comments online that the folks were saying that had maintained kind of their same kind of business model, and I think it's that was a company called Loungefly, and so I went and looked at their stuff. And again, so many people are so interesting. The things people want that I have no idea about. And so, Ralph, if you have some stuff from them, feel free to share. But I was like, all of these designer backpacks that were very IP centric, of a variety of different kinds. Ralph, do you have stuff from there?
My wife has several things from Loungefly. What's great is we knew about Loungefly before Funko, and since Funko, saw them at Celebration. My wife got a C3PO wallet. The bags are the art just varies across the board, and the styles vary across the board. They're very creative. And it just seems like now, with Funko being in charge of Loungefly, I feel like we're getting crazier things and more things. So at Celebration, even though it was a con exclusive and they were limited, they had an Ewok backpack, but it was from the Ewoks animated series from 1985. So like they're starting to be able to get really niche. So I think that if Mondo starts getting like sort of the Funko fans coming over and more people are getting exposed to Mondo, we'll start getting kind of weird stuff. We'll start getting into really, really different things. I said I was a Green Lantern fan, and if they were to make James Newton Howard's score to Green Lantern available on vinyl, that would be terrific. But they would have to probably know the numbers ahead of time. I don't know how many people care about the music. They obviously don't like the movie. But if it can get to, if Loungefly in the last 3 years can get to the Ewoks cartoon as a con exclusive, why not have a Green Lantern vinyl record exclusive at Emerald City Comic-Con?
So that's the other thing, is with them getting exposure through such a large brand like Funko. Like we know Mondo because we're into this, but the average person probably has never heard of Mondo. Even like the average sort of vinyl listener probably doesn't know Mondo unless they're into soundtracks specifically. So again, the greater name recognition they can get, and as that grows, they will get more interest in fans that are interested in their product. And at the end of the day, they're a business that needs to make money. And the more people they have clamoring for their product, you know, the more they're going to pump out.
Well, and maybe it also gives them the ability that, you know, to do smaller runs of things, you know, that may not have a huge audience, but they might love to do too. You can see David just commented, there's 2 people who want that Green Lantern score. So the numbers are only on the rise here, guys.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Ewok stuff, you know, something silly. Like there's like things I really want. And then there's things that I'm like, that'd be kind of cool. and like one of the things in that, it's also Ewok related. I'd take that cartoon one probably, but like I love those Battle for Endor made for TV movies. You know, I would take those, and like that's a Varese Sarabande one that's never been repressed. I would totally buy those, you know,
I was looking for that at Celebration too.
Yeah.
But if you think about like how lucky we are in like this point in time, in terms of the stuff we have access to, like the collectibles and you know, pop culture and nerd kind of merchandise. If this stuff existed when I was a teenager, I would have lost my mind. Like we have the coolest stuff now, and there's stuff now that I don't buy because I'm an adult with an adult house, and you know, don't want to have toys everywhere necessarily. But there's just so much cool stuff, and I think this adds to that, and there's only going to be more. You know, the more of this that we or they get out in front of other people.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, did you see anything from Spencer about Deathwall specifically? Like, are they, you know, are they're just a part of this whole thing? Because it's hard for me to differentiate sometimes when we say Mondo. You know, is it both? So feel free to share anything.
Somebody asked and he commented that like they're going to continue on as they already have. I think there's 3 Deathwall recordings. Projects that are going to be released, so they're still carrying on.
Sure. Yeah. David from David's Horror has a big question. Does this up our chances of The Shining having a release of the complete score, a re-release? Let's weigh in on this. This is a big question.
I'm going to say the chances are better now because there's Funko Pops of Jack Torrance and.
Is there a Funko? Right? Is there a Funko Pop of Wendy Carlos? Because I think I don't know this for certain, but I think that's where more of the issues lie than maybe Jack Torrance's likeness. But I hope so, David. That would be fantastic. You know, I'm sure there's many that would be happy to see that one come up.
All right.
I've had one experience where I almost bought a Funko Pop, and this is on like the not obscure, but not necessarily super popular with everybody. I was seeking out Frasier action figures because I heard that they were a thing, and I think somebody made somebody made custom ones of like proper action figures. But then they did have Funko Pops of like Frasier, Niles, and Martin, and I looked to see if I could find them. They were sold.
No Daphne.
But like those are the only
Ross. No Daphne or Ross.
See Daphne or Ross, but maybe
I would see, and then if they want to do a 50 run of the Frasier soundtrack on vinyl, give me a little scrambled egg color or something like that.
I would take it. For
people are gonna buy that. Yeah. All right, Gareth dropped a question that I love. First part, Gareth, we kind of talked about earlier about larger runs. You know, maybe we think, but that could also be part of the game that they maybe do on purpose. But the second part, could Funko invest in a pressing plant, perhaps? I saw this comment on the Instagram post on Mondo, is that, maybe this gives them more ability to have direct control over the pressings in a way that they may not have now with the deals they have with whatever groups they're using right now to press. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head. It might be GZ or something. But that's an interesting question. I also read that, Funko had maybe laid off a couple hundred people in the Washington area right before all this happened. So I don't know, maybe there's a little movement there to kind of invest in some sort of pressing plant near the Midwest or something, so they can have tighter relationships like that, because that would really be an interesting change and a very clear sign that they're investing in this in the future, like long term. Because I have worries sometimes that the bubble's going to burst on a lot of this, and that we're like 2 years away from people being like, where you're going to see deep clearances at places like Target and Walmart, and they're not going to be in this game anymore, and the profit will take a nosedive.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting point. So on the bubble bursting comment, I think I do sincerely think it will burst for mainstream vinyl. So the 500,000 Adele's, that's not going to happen for Adele 40. But for the niche type, I think those will continue, which is why we're in a good place, why Mondo's in a good place. I think they have a pretty solid fan base of people that are pretty committed to this medium. So I think we're good for a little while. On the opening pressing plant side, I just don't think that's realistic, and I don't even think they would need the volume of a full pressing plant. I would guess if they did that, they would probably take on other.
It's a partnership deal, right?
Yeah.
Try and tee up some regional group too. And David throws out a comment too, is that if Jack White can do it, what's stopping others? And I'll say it's pretty expensive to get started.
Yeah.
And also, Jack White, love him. He's a maniac too. He wanted to do that. I mean, he's so driven, and I mean that in the complimentary. He wanted this so bad that he went and did it. And if you guys haven't seen, maybe like 2-3 months ago, he sent a challenge out to Universal and some of the big groups to say, why don't you guys make a new plant? You are the folks going to all of these small places trying to leverage them, and if you really want to lean into it, show us by investing in another plant in wherever to help support the whole system. Which I thought, he's putting his money where his mouth is, kind of a person, which I really respect. But I think David's got a great point. Are there other entrepreneurial folks, and maybe that's the chord that people are hoping that will get struck at Funko, right? That they'll say, yeah, we're gonna head that route too. Maybe they can partner, with some of the other soundtrack labels. We can have our pure soundtrack only pressing plant with Waxwork and Enjoy the Ride. Everybody can just be a part of it. I like community vibes, so that works really well for me.
That's the thing, is if Mondo for some reason goes downhill because of this, like, we do have other places to go to get vinyl. It's not, I mean, I'm not too concerned about the state of soundtracks on vinyl at all. I mean, I buy a Mondo soundtrack, with the exception of the Godzillas that they've been putting out every month, or the Toho releases. Like, I'll get one every 3 months,
You don't like snap awake in the middle of the night with a little sweat and be like, oh wait, are they ever gonna press this Horner soundtrack or something like that? It doesn't happen. Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's great with the thing about Mondo is they're not really tied to any specific studio.
Yeah. It's like Disney. If like Disney had done this, I would be like, well, I know what we're getting, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But that is a good point. Not only are there other people still in the game, but there are smaller labels that are starting to grow a little bit too, and filling in little gaps. Like places like Enjoy the Ride, like they were pretty small, and they've grown over the last couple of years. So I think, Mondo, it was an inevitability that they would grow larger and larger and probably be, acquired in this way. But there's still a lot of tiny labels that are doing cool stuff, and maybe. Ideally, a rising tide lifts all ships kind of situation. And, there's room for them to get into new territory as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be I think it's going to take a while to really see anything. I'm sure the slate is set for the next 18 months. There's not going to be like a big surprise where it's like, oh, yeah, now we're going to release. I don't know what the wild card would be for us to be like, oh, things have really changed. But maybe they'll throw a few Funko packages together. The only other thing I have on my list of things to kind of chat about that I will fully commit I know absolutely nothing about is NFTs. And like I heard some chatter like, oh, maybe they're gonna like instead of doing physical posters, they'll do both or NFTs or something. And I have a lot of it just ignorance around that piece. It's just I just bundle it up with crypto. It's just something I'm just not gonna understand, and I'm gonna set it over here and just keep living my life. But so so I think there was a lot of hand wringing around that kind of stuff, and I don't know if you guys have any insight on the NFT world.
No, I did not. I did not buy those $10 packs of Funko cards to get that Green Lantern. I did not spend $300 on eBay to get one of those digital cards, and I probably won't spend however much it's going to be when the physical pop actually gets in the hands of the people. I'm wondering if, something I don't think we've seen with Mondo is digital releases. Because I know with some of the other companies, TerraVision, which was mentioned, Vrace, they also release stuff digitally. I'm wondering if that's something they could get into to sort of, increase their profits. I'd be fine with it. I mean, sometimes I just like to listen to some of these albums, on the go.
Sure.
And so that might be something that they would probably maybe look into. I don't know.
Particularly when they have, exclusive extended releases as well. So sometimes we get these cool releases and then folks are like, there's a ton of soundtrack fans that just aren't into vinyl, and that's fine. It's not your jam, but they wish they had a digital version of those extended albums. Like a silly one that just comes to mind is Mission Impossible 2. There are additional tracks and stuff like that came with the album that I've been wanting for years, but it only came on vinyl. I'm sure there's ripped tracks and stuff out there as well, but
it might be, and I don't know if they would hate this, but like there's cost prohibitive things. Like one of my dream ones is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, but there is this epically expanded release, right? It's like 3 CDs, and it's a lot of hours of music, and so like part of me wants an expanded vinyl release, but I also know that they're like, well, what? We're gonna put out a 5 LP set? No. And so like make me a 2 LP that is, the best of that expanded, and then maybe just make the rest digital with that purchase. And I'd probably be okay with that, and kind of balance those costs out and find a happy median there or whatever.
Well, and they're dabbling in CDs now too, with Dune. And I think that's exciting too, because again, there's a lot of people that they like some form of physical media, and there's still a ton of people listening to CDs. So if they can do it, why not? It just expands their audience.
Right.
Well, it's going to be exciting times, guys. I think I think we'll maybe wrap it there. I think we've hit most of the main points I saw other people. I tried to kind of glean what other people were panicking about. I kind of ignored the rude people, and then, just kind of hit the big points. Any last thoughts here before we wrap up?
Go ahead, Ralph.
I was just going to say, if it ends up the way Loungefly ended up, perfect.
Right.
Perfect. It's going to be good for everybody. Everybody.
I think it might be a weird way for me to end this, but it's not a big deal at the end of the day. Like there are other issues in the world that are far more, it's fun to talk about. It's fun to speculate. This is our hobby and that sort of thing, but it's not a big deal. I'm sure there won't be drastic impacts to us in our day-to-day lives. If there are, we can move on to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll wrap it there. To our Mondo folks, congratulations. We're wishing the best, of course. Ignore the haters. And everybody else who's been here watching, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Be sure you're subscribed. I'm all flipped. Be sure you're subscribed to Ralph's channel and Mark's channel. Also, there's some great comments here. David's Horror. Be sure to subscribe to his channel too. Miss 80s was here. All great folks who just love soundtracks and love talking about them. So we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks a lot.
See you next time.
Bye.